4 parents, 9 kids, 2 houses. Didn't really want to talk about this. 4 parents, 9 kids, I'm queer. One thing's clear, there's no dysfunction here. 4 parents, 9 kids, 2 houses. Didn't really want to talk about this. 4 parents, 9 kids, I'm queer. One thing's clear, there's no dysfunction here.
Babe, hand me a beer.
Hey.
Indeed. I know exactly how to start this podcast episode this week, so I'll get going.
Sweet.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Toby. Happy birthday to you. Wow, we're good.
Whoa. I am touched. Thank you. This is year number 2 of my birthday not being triggering. Yay!
Wins left
Last
and right.
year was like the first year ever that I didn't just cry my whole, like birthdays are just triggering with, everybody has different things. And then this is year number 2 of smiles all day.
I think that's great.
Yay for healing.
Sweet.
It was a
Good
wonderful
work.
day.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for being here again, everybody.
Oh, I wanted to say, with the jingle at the very end, I honestly, in my life, I've never said, babe, hand me a beer. So,
It
Jake
is
is
great.
I just want to make
least
sure everybody
likely.
knows we're just kidding.
That's so true. That's a very good point.
Jake does not like beer. I remember Jake coming to visit us in Utah one time when he lived in Texas and we lived in Utah. And all we had to drink was beer as far as like an alcoholic beverage. So he's like, could I have mine over ice? And I was like, what now? But yeah, he's not a beer person.
Nothing wrong with that.
That is absolutely true. But the reason that I brought it up was because I'm absolutely not a boss around my wife person. It doesn't have anything to do with the beer.
That's even more true.
Hilarious.
So
I was
true.
just saying, like, I'm not ever going to say, babe, hand me anything, but I'll try to be nicer than that. So.
No,
That's a
good point.
really good point.
Very good
Jake
point.
is so polite.
But then again, maybe I shouldn't have told that since it's at the beginning of and end of every podcast.
I think it's important to clarify.
Yeah.
Jake is not a douchebag.
We're-
He's
yeah.
actually very
We-
polite, and
we
if he
need
wants
full
something,
disclosure.
he usually just
Yeah.
gets up and gets it himself.
He's
Well,
a
thank
good
you.
guy.
Yeah.
He was drinking a beer last night, though.
What?
A Hefeweizen? What's it called?
A heifer.
Hefeweizen?
Hefeweizen. Yes, it was a Hefeweizen.
Oh yeah, those are the best kinds.
It was so good.
Yeah, those German
That's
cow
awesome.
beers.
Oh, we went to German cow beer. We went to a birthday party about a half hour away, and it was at a bar.
Yeah.
There was live music, and we went up and tried to get our drinks, and they're like, all we have is beer.
Wow,
All we have is beer.
that's surprising.
Yeah.
Crazy synchronicity, kind of.
I got trashed on Diet Coke all
Yeah.
night.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
She couldn't drive.
I was awake all night because of the Diet Coke.
Yeah.
Oh
I wasn't
yeah,
paying attention to that, so that was my bad.
bummer.
Caffeine. It'll get you. What are we talking about today, guys?
Oh,
We did. I think it was episode. What is this? Episode 5.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is episode 5. I think at the end of episode 3, we had a little teaser.
Sir.
yeah. That's how you hook, line, sinker 'em, is with the
Reel
teasers.
'em in.
We
Wait
got him
till
here.
you hear the end of this episode.
And in French, the word is buble.
Oh yeah, tis here.
Michael Bublé?
See?
Is that we?
We understood. Language
Yeah.
is all about getting the point
Yeah.
across.
The bubble.
Oh yeah, the bubble.
El buble.
Oh, that's right. I literally did not make the connection about Buble being the bubble till just now. That's embarrassing and on me.
And
Hey.
I truthfully did not know what the bubble was until I became a part of this family. So
Me too.
Well, what is the bubble,
Dad,
friends?
can I go into the bubble?
Yep.
Sure.
Hmm.
Basically means that it's a safe space and the child does not have to have any fears about what comes out of their mouth.
Yeah, no repercussions for
Yeah.
being able to talk about whatever they want to talk about.
Wasn't there a situation like a really young age, and I don't even remember what kid it was, but I want to say it was Jonah, but just like, at the age of 3 or 4, like, can I go into the bubble? And they just like said what they thought was a cuss word, but it really wasn't. And then they just ran out of the room like, can I go to the bubble? Sure. What the heck? And then just like ran out scared.
Yes, I think that was Jonah. We have had many funny bubble moments because when they're little, they say the funniest stuff, but also, having this figurative space that the child knows they can always go into. And when I say no consequences, like safe space, it really is. So like you have to stick with that. You have to be aware of your energy as a parent when you're hearing whatever is coming out of your child's mouth. We have had some really funny moments in the bubble, but more importantly, we've had some moments that have been super enlightening and helpful on our parenting journey, because basically, as explained before, the bubble is like a figurative place where the child can ask to go, and if given permission, there are no consequences inside of the bubble. So, and I do remember other kids being like, fuck, and then running out. But we also have heard about difficult situations between siblings, difficult situations happening at school or at a friend's house, or there have been a lot of times where we would not have known what a child did if they didn't feel safe enough to come and say it in the bubble. So it's important that we all have a safe space to communicate. So I just think it was kind of helpful, and it still is, helpful for our kids to have that intact.
Agreed. It's almost, to me, there have been so many experiences like that are the equivalent of, you've heard of like parents that are like, if you're at a party and you're in trouble or whatever, no questions asked, give me a call and I'll come get you, that kind of a thing. There have been many moments that have stemmed almost like that from the bubble, where it's like you're hearing some things that you're not so excited about, as a parent, and might concern you a little bit, but you're getting to big issues and hearing things that you never would have heard about as a parent, because your child was worried that they might be getting in trouble for something else that was attached to it, or even the scenario itself. And so many times we've been able to counsel or help kids through something, or learn something, that we otherwise would not have known, that maybe, somebody else is in danger, or something that's going on. And I just feel like it has given us so many opportunities to help and understand our kids better.
When I was a kid, my parents were really kind to me, and I think they were great parents, or are great parents. But for some reason, even though I think that I had a great childhood, I was scared to death of making a peep in church. Like, I thought that my parents were going to kill me if I made any noise in church, like from since I could remember. But they weren't going to kill me. Why do we as kids, even if we have a good childhood and our parents aren't abusive towards us or even spank us very often, like, why do we get so scared and think that it's going to be the end of the world if we do something wrong? I don't really have the answer for that. But I do think that the bubble provides an opportunity to these kids, to children in general, to, the end goal is we just want honesty among all of us. Like, regardless of the communication, parents to kids, parents to parents, kids to kids, like whatever. We just want open, honest, caring communication. And if children are naturally going to be afraid of telling the truth, or any human being for that matter, naturally going to be afraid of telling the truth because of the potential consequences that are going through their mind, then why not at a very young age create something like the bubble? And it's like, we're just calling it the bubble, but really we're just teaching honest, open communication at a very young age. We're teaching that safe space. When's the last time somebody asked me? My youngest child is 15. Our youngest, well, I can't say that because some of us have different children. It's been years since anybody asked me to go into the bubble.
Right.
But it's only been minutes since one of my children had an honest conversation with me that might not have happened if we hadn't created that safe space in the first place.
Absolutely.
The bubble idea, it's just like a, you know, easy to understand, whole lot easier for children ages 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to understand than open, honest, caring communication. How do you explain that to a child?
True. You don't. You just trick them into it.
You just
Like we
trick them
do.
into the bubble.
Yeah. No, look at this
Come on
fun space
in.
over here.
It's
Free
very
Wi-Fi.
safe.
Doing
There's candy in that white van.
That's right.
But it's true. Like for the most part, like in our house, they're all teenagers. So it's not even asking, can I go into the bubble, but can we talk?
Mhm.
Like, do you have a second? And they don't have to have the fear of, well, maybe they still do. Whether it's going to be like, are they disappointing us? Did they do something that we just wouldn't approve of because they didn't have permission? But it's more comfortable now. They can say how they feel and what's going on. And there's times where, like Toby mentioned, I think you mentioned it, like a conflict with a sibling, and they're sharing information, and they might be nervous, and they don't necessarily want that sibling to know that they're having some type of inner confrontation or whatnot. But we talk it through. It's important. We hear, we listen, and we provide insight. You know, it might not be the best advice, and maybe between the four of us, it's going to be different advice. But it just makes them feel comfortable and safe, and maybe we can bring in the other sibling and just have a conversation together instead of internalizing it as like one person.
Agreed. I think one part that gets tricky and difficult, possibly especially with younger kids, is like, what about when someone tells you something inside of the bubble that is concerning regarding someone else? And it's happened probably to all of us where someone's gone into the bubble and they have something negative about another one of the parents. And how do you go about that with confidentiality and trust and whatnot?
That's a really good point. And the best part about all of it, and I feel like what we're trying to do, is that we're not claiming to have it all figured out. And, you know, like if presented in 5 minutes with one of those very scenarios, even with us being in a great place and feeling like we have pretty good open communication between us and great intentions, it would be difficult. Like, well, how do I go about this now without betraying that child's trust and making sure that I'm also being fair to whatever I feel like I need to do or say? But I think that going back to what Jake was saying, like it's open, honest communication. I think because we've built that path, like it makes it easier to broach those conversations and situations and figure out what the best or most tactful way to do it is that's fair to everybody.
Mm-hmm. And I know we mention it a lot. We're not perfect, and we are.
You keep saying that, and I keep telling you, leave me out of it.
But we are 4 very real parents, and the 4 of us haven't always gotten along. We've had disagreements, and a child may go into the bubble and say, like, to Toby, like, well, Tiff did this at the house today. And I think it's important, especially with co-parenting in separate households, to let the listeners know, like, how do we handle that?
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe we are in a disagreement mode, and there are probably moms and stepmoms out there that don't even want to look at each other, let alone be able to come over and have dinner for your birthday. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's important to recognize for dads and stepdads and moms and stepmoms out there, like if your child comes to you and they're confiding in you that something's going on that's hurting them, what is the best method to communicate to a parent that maybe you don't get along with so well?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important to note too that we haven't always handled those well, you know, like especially when we're at odds or we're having issues with each other. There have definitely been times where, you know, like a child can come and be like, well, this parent's doing this or saying this, and we're already in a hard situation with that parent about like some other issue or whatever's going on. And so it's easy to want to fall into the trap of like, see, you know, whatever, you know, that feeling. And personally, I've been guilty of it. You know, I think it's what we've worked to get out of and not have as part of our relationship as 4 parents anymore. And it's work every day. Just continue to give the benefit of the doubt like we've talked about before. And that's all I got.
AJ, you mentioned something about like the kids talking to you, and of course, like we've all been in the same situation. So I think it's interesting to bring this up as your child may be negatively speaking about a parent. I feel like I come from a divorced family, and like growing up, and one thing, because I am divorced with 2 children and I was a single mom for a moment, and I pride myself in the fact I did not speak negatively about my children's father to them. So if they were upset about something, or any of our children are upset about us, I think it's respectful and caring and loving to learn not to do that. Because in the moment, your child can be so hurt and so enraged. And when you're looking at divorced families and they're not happy at one house and they're going to the other house and talking to parents, not to jump on that board like, yeah, you're right, like they do all this wrong and da 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 da. Like, yes, we want to be empathetic and feel for our children, but when it's at somebody else's expense, that they're supposed to love and respect, and it's just something I've worked very hard with. My, not speaking negatively about my ex-husband to my 2. And I'm sure it happens every day. Like, I hear conversations of people like outside of our family, like negatively speaking about their partner to their children. And I'm like, why? Why do you want to provide such trauma? Because when that kid gets older, that's sticking with them. And that's really, really hard, I think, to bite your tongue. Because in that moment, you probably are like, you want to just let it all out. And I'm like moving in my chair, which you can't see. But does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
It reminds me of a time when one of our kids, I don't know, a year or 2 ago, they were saying something about you guys, about something that was going on at your household, you and Toby and AJ. He was saying something in a positive light, and it was during a time where we were arguing. And so since I was trying not to just engage in saying things negative and talk trash about Toby and AJ, I didn't want to do that. I knew I didn't want to do that, but I also didn't want to contribute to the positive conversation either, because of my own personal feelings about you guys in that moment. And I don't think he'll mind me telling, like, it was Jonah, he's 15 now, so he's probably 13 at the time. But he said, and I think it has everything to do with opening up that honest communication, like with the bubble, he was able to say, can I tell you that it bothers me that you don't have anything positive to say about Toby and AJ? And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm not talking trash. Like, I just didn't say anything. And he's like, and so, 13, like, we don't give my point is we don't give our kids enough credit for what they pick up on. Yeah. Even if we think that staying silent, like, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. Well, that didn't work for me in that moment either.
Yeah.
And it negatively impacted him because I wasn't sharing in the positivity. And that was a huge eye-opener for me, thinking that I'm doing such a good job by not saying anything at all, and learning a big old lesson in that moment of not doing anything at all isn't good enough. I was able to learn from that experience.
I love that. I mean, I don't know how you guys feel, but absolutely guilty of the exact same thing, where it's like you think you're trying to be the bigger person and an adult, and like, I'm not going to, do anything that's negative, but you're so focused on not being negative that you're just not being positive either, and there are opportunities when a child's coming to you, and like you said, they're so smart. They know, they pick up on everything. They understand it all. Like, even if they don't understand what's going on between parents, they understand the energy around what's going on between parents.
Right.
And so definitely been in the exact same situation where something's said and maybe I'm not, saying anything negative, or I'm not, doing anything to put that down, but I'm not acknowledging what's being said, or I'm not validating, the positivity that child's trying to bring to me about somebody that maybe I'm at odds with or having an issue with at the moment. So I think it's important to recognize that supporting your kids in those relationships with other parents isn't just about refraining from, making it negative. You have a responsibility, I think, as a parent to foster those relationships and encourage the positivity and celebrate the positivity in their relationship with anyone else, even if you're struggling with that person.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I love it. And it goes back to what Toby was saying. I don't even remember if it was in a podcast, but I've heard you say it several times in the last few weeks. If you disagree with what somebody's saying, so in my situation with Jonah, what I was just saying, like he was saying something positive, ultimately I disagreed. And so I just kept my mouth shut. But what you've said is, like, if you disagree with something that somebody's saying, like, your job should be to find at least one thing that you can agree with and be vocal about it. Talk about that thing,
I was just, along with that, going to say that it's important that our kids know they have a safe space to talk about things that are negative in their life, but that doesn't necessarily mean we need to jump on the negative bandwagon. We don't have to be like, hey, you're being negative, you need to be more positive. Sometimes something needs cleared. They need to really talk about it, but we can still do our very best to stay neutral when it comes to judgments or opinions, and understand that there's two sides to every story. And especially when it comes to a story a child is telling us in the bubble about, or in confidence about another parent, to be very aware of the triggers that might create in us that we want to jump on that bandwagon of negativity. Be aware that, oh, this is a time where I need to be very intentional about staying neutral. And I think so much of the time with older kids, it's just as much communication as you can. So it's like, if there is an issue with another parent, say, yeah, this seems like a really important conversation to have with that person here. So maybe we can set up a meeting and talk without judgment, but just speak freely. And like, man, these kids are so wise and so naturally reasonable that we haven't run into anything yet that can't be like worked out through discussion when it comes to these issues of like, we disagree with you and with the choice you're making or whatever it is. I don't know. It just seems like communication is such a key to all of it.
Yeah, and I'm okay sharing this. I don't think you'll mind me sharing this. I don't think Anna and Jonah would mind either, but it created an extremely eye-opening life moment for me. They had asked to speak with Jake about situations where I may be a negative person, and it hurt me to hear that I was hurting my kids. And at first, because I'm like in defense mode, I get really angry. I'm like, I need to process this. And it hurt bad, because I don't want to hurt the people I love. But then Jake and I had a conversation, and I made some real hard mental choices and just did some things to better myself. And now my perception is completely changed, and I strive harder to, if I see they're excited about something, even if I'm in a really, really bad moment, I'm wanting to share that excitement with them. And I just have to remember again, like, perception's everything. If I'm in a bad mood, I can't let that bleed out to the people around me, because my negative energy is now becoming their negative energy. And just if they would not have had that open communication with Jake, I would not have been made aware of it. I would not have been eye-opened by the circumstance and looked to change myself and my perception. Like, I'm still Tiff. I still do everything Tiff does. But the way I look at interactions with the kids has drastically changed for the better, in my opinion.
Yeah, we're four parents that are, thanks for sharing that, Tiff. We're four parents that, baby, I never call you Tiff.
Oh,
I know, I
That
called
was
Toby.
weird.
I'm in
I
trouble.
called Toby while we were playing a game of poker earlier today, and I was like, that felt wrong.
I like
I didn't like that. Oh, you did. I like honey.
But we're four parents that, in our minds, we are trying our absolute best. We love our kids to the end of the world, and there's nothing that we won't do for them. So, recognizing it's not easy for us to recognize if we are making any mistakes or if there are any possibilities of improvement. It's like in our minds, we're trying our best, and it's all day, every day. How much naturally, how are we going to find out what our faults are if we have any, unless somebody brings it to our attention? I don't know. I thought, that was a tough situation, but it was honesty and communication from all angles that helped us get through it, all of us get through it, because it wasn't all like, hey, Tiff, you're the problem and this is how to fix it. Anna learned some lessons in that situation. Jonah learned some lessons in that situation. I learned some lessons in that situation. We all learned something from it of how we could have improved. And then the ultimate goal is good, honest communication and ultimate positivity and peace, more positivity and peace than we had before. And so I just think it's great.
I think it's great too. And I think what is on full display by these kids is courage. I feel like communication requires courage when we're talking about these vulnerable situations that are difficult, tough topics, and the bubble starting early with giving your children the safe space to communicate. It's not going to be everything. Our kids are still going to be nervous and avoid the bubble and lie sometimes and whatever. We're all going to be all flawed. That's the way it is. But really starting to build that foundation of communication and courageous communication leads to moments like this where a 15 and 16-year-old can talk to their parents about something that, they adore and love Tiff. So they don't want to hurt her feelings. And so, it's just important that we set this standard of you have a voice in this family.
I love it. And I think with all of what we're talking about with these different stories and examples and the idea of the bubble and how, as Jake so beautifully put it, it really has transitioned to what it is meant to be, which is open and honest communication. It's turned into that for all of us in a bigger way. And also we're still adapting and we're still learning. And so when a child comes to a parent and goes into the bubble and wants to talk about another parent, we're learning in that situation. The first time it's like, I have no idea how to handle this. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I'm probably reacting the wrong way and being like, yeah, that's not right. Like, let's both be upset at him or whatever it might be. But now, I think if that were to happen to any of us, our first reaction is, okay, I can be a listener. I can empathize with you, but I can even, and what's so great about it is even, like Jonah, Anna, any of our kids, they've been in this process long enough now too that they understand that if they come and do that and we say we empathize, then we say directly, but it's really not my role or place to try to fix this. It sounds like it's a conversation between you and your mom or you and your dad or you and Tiff or whoever it is. And I can empathize. Like, I really understand why that seems very difficult, but I encourage you to take this to the next step and talk to them directly about it, because they've always shown that they're great with open and honest communication. They want to hear how you're feeling and what you're doing and what you're saying, just like Jake was just talking about, with that situation with you guys. I think that we've seen how it's grown, and now we have fewer and fewer situations where we feel like we don't know what to do here. We feel like at least there's somewhat, we're like, okay, I've been through this before. This worked well last time. It didn't work well when I did it this way before. I'm going to go this route and maybe try to tweak it a little bit to have it be even better and less intrusive or whatever it might be.
Love it.
Awesome.
Oh, shout.
Me too. Just one more thing as far as the bubble concerned and what it's taught me is that when we, at younger ages for our children, when they say, I want to go into the bubble, and ultimately the idea is it's a safe space and you're not going to get in trouble for what you say. Well, that just kind of opens up a a big can of worms on whether or not you feel like you're allowed to punish the child if they tell you something that absolutely deserves a punishment.
Sure.
So it's like, if your kid skips school and you find out about it and you're gonna ground them for a week because they skip school. That's what you normally would do. That's your MO. But they go into the bubble and tell you about it right after they get home from alleged school, and it's before they got in trouble at school. They just came home and tell you about it. Open, honest communication. It's just kind of a sticky situation. Like, so am I allowed to punish them or not because they went into the bubble?
I think we could totally continue this conversation, because I think that question could be an episode on its own. Like, it does get complicated. And when a child confides in you something that it's your job to give them a consequence for, it does put you in a sticky situation, and it could lead into a conversation about natural consequences as well. And just the way that we've kind of learned to parent with, you always say the biggest punishment is this lecture,
Right.
Like a 2-hour long talk or whatever. I do think somehow we have managed to never punish a child for anything they go into the bubble with, but also that doesn't mean moving forward we set boundaries. The next time you ask to use the car, oh, I'm sorry, you have broken trust, and so we're just working on building some trust back. But that's not a consequence of the thing. It's just knowledge and awareness,
Right.
So I don't know, it gets tricky for sure, but I think that there are a lot of situations with communication with kids that we could kind of dissect. I don't know.
I think we just got our
Absolutely.
teaser for another
I was
episode.
gonna say, I
That
told you there'd
sounds
be one.
spicy.
The Bubble, Part 2,
That's true. Don't pop my bubble.
for at least 2 minutes before another topic.
Right.
All right, guys. Well, thanks again.
Yes.
Happy
thank you so much.
birthday.
Happy
Happy
birthday,
birthday
Mama
indeed.
T.
Hey, trauma-free birthdays.
Yeah, celebrate.
Like and subscribe.
Click the
Click
link
something
below.
down below. Yeah.
You
I-
too want a trauma-free birthday.
Yes.
All right, guys. See you
Thanks
later.
so much. Bye.
Yay.
4 parents, 9 kids, 2 houses. Didn't really wanna talk about this. 4 parents, 9 kids, I'm queer. One thing's clear, there's no dysfunction here. 4 parents, 9 kids, 2 houses. Didn't really wanna talk about this. 4 parents, 9 kids, I'm queer. One thing's clear, there's no dysfunction here. Babe, hand me a